Section 25 of 11 Stories by Henry Hasse. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Cinda J. M. We're friends now. Part 4. Arnold looked at her for a single comprehending instant, a pitying instant, then his lips compressed tightly as he turned away. There was finality in it. Sheila's eyes were stark and unbelieving. She stood there without motion, without a word, her mind groping in a shock of blindness. Beardsley said gently, "It's all right, Mrs. Carmack. It's really all right. Merely an experiment, an inquiry into comparative methods, as Mandelko said. I'm truly sorry if my methods seemed harsh, but—" He shrugged. "I dare say my participation is over now." "You're damn right you may say it, Beardsley." Arnold's eyes raked him with venom, but he controlled himself and turned to Mandelko. "I only came to tell you, sir, that we have ECA-IAC ready. We'll be reaching cumulative very shortly now." "Jeff? Are you sure?" "Quite sure. Depend on it. There'll be no more trouble." More than relief took hold of Mandelko. It was transformation. It was as if a spell had been snapped. He glanced once about the room and shuddered as his gaze encountered Beardsley. Yes, fine," he said. That's fine, Jeff. Shall we proceed?" He strode through the door, pausing only to fling back scathingly, "That is, if Mr. Beardsley's quite sure it meets with his approval." ECA-IAC was in finest fettle again as the tapes sped through. Circuits were activated, codes gave meaning, synaptic cells summed and integrated, canceled and compared, and with saucy assurance sent the findings on toward cumulative. The murmur was soft and sustained and somehow apologetic, as if ECA-IAC were quite aware that she had failed in her duty, but would be just pleased to make amends, this time. So like a woman, fractious, unfathomable, then fawning and attrite, with a purpose. Beardsley cocked his head and listened, his mien almost beatific. Purpose? This creature had none that could quite match his. He was convinced of it now, and he had never been more happy or self-assured. It was Pedersen who was distressed. As he paced with long, nervous strides and watched the equate panels where the mathematics were made visible in a pattern of constantly changing lights. It had meaning only for the techs, but Pedersen couldn't seem to take his eyes from it. At last he came over to Beardsley and managed to steer him aside. "Beardsley, I just don't get it. This whole thing. Are you quite sure?" Beardsley blinked at him. "Sure of what, Pedersen?" "Of what you're doing. Damn it, man, don't tell me that was all waste effort in there. Look, I know what this means, and I'm with you all the way. If only you could beat ECA-IAC, I'll give it all the publicity it can bear. Who knows?" Beardsley looked at him blankly, and Pedersen gave a snort and a gesture. "All right, I guess I'm wrong. For a while there, I actually thought you had it." Pedersen surveyed him shrewdly. "Just the same, that bit you exploded about the person who killed Carmack didn't hate him at all. You meant that, Beardsley." "That's right, I meant it." "My choice is Jeff Arnold." "Ah, now why do you say that?" "The way you built up to it, that's why. And you got your result. Sheila Carmack's in love with Arnold, and she tried to cover up for him. Sure, that's it. It's obvious. She thinks he's the killer. Either thinks or knows it." "Ah, yes, the obvious," Beardsley said with a grimace. "But you know, I learned a long time ago that the obvious can be a mighty tricky thing, a dangerous thing. The forceps of the mind are greedy and inclined to crush a little in the seizing." Pedersen pondered that. "And you," he said slowly, "are not seizing." I take that to mean you still have an angle?" Beardsley didn't answer at once. He glanced over at the equate panel, at the flux of dancing lights. Mandelka was bright-eyed and attentive, chomping at the stub of a cigar, head thrust forward as he listened to some detail of Arnold's. Sheila stood miserably nearby, still in a blind shock of disbelief. It was as if she had a need to be close to Arnold, and he felt it too, but they dare not look at each other. "Now let's suppose," said Beardsley, "just suppose, that Arnold thinks Sheila is the killer. Eh? Let's say they suspect each other. Naturally, each has disclaimed any part of the deed, but the suspicion is there, that tiny seed. And suspicion, particularly where love is involved, has a habit of taking root and giving growth. Neither can be totally sure of the other's innocence, eh?" He paused, peering up at Pedersen. "And Arnold would want to protect her from any possible consequence. Now, what would be his way of doing that? The only way he knew." He saw the idea take hold. Pedersen was staring at the equate panel with an odd look of excitement. "Total reject," he gasped. "By God, if he should try that, to equate her from logical into reject?" He gestured helplessly. "No, it isn't possible. Those tapes are coded. There's no way of tampering." Pedersen stopped abruptly as a great light dawned. "Wait a minute, though. It needn't be the tapes. One thing I've always wondered, would it be possible to negate a given factor beyond all reach of empirical coordinates? You know, through operational technique or setup?" Beardsley peered at him. "I'd say anything was possible," he urged, "given time and incentive." Pedersen bobbed his head in facile agreement. "By God, you're right. For example, I've always thought there wasn't sufficient control on cumulative. You can bet your life Arnold would know. Results at that point could be juggled a little. Say if the extrapolations were just the forceps of the mind. Already Pedersen was reaching out to seize and to crush. The man was a fool after all. Beardsley felt a burgeoning disgust, but there was something more, a throbbing, chest-filling sensation that he strove to hold rigidly in leash. He said quickly, "Come to think of it, Arnold did mention that he was here most of last night, working on setup." He watched Pedersen absorb that too. He saw the excitement grow. "Beardsley, if you are sure, if you could prove that Arnold managed a thing like that—" They were interrupted by the sudden quiet that engulfed the room. It was so total as to be frightening. Cumulative, cumulative, cumulative. For half a minute all operations ceased as the words flashed bright across the panel. But the techs had been waiting. It was a mere respite. Swiftly, they checked their respective units against the cumulative code, and at the end of 30 seconds, every light went green for total clearance as ECA IAC's deep-throated power resumed. Beardsley had been waiting too. "Cumulative," he breathed. He let his breath out slowly and made a sweeping gesture that seemed to encompass all the latent delight, all the unleashed joy of his being. He was aware of Pedersen again, a voice in a panic. "Beardsley, don't you know what it means? If there's been an imbalance, it has passed through. It will reach final equate." "That's right. It's entirely in ECA IAC's lap. You wouldn't want to deprive her of the chance now, would you?" But what are you going to do?" "Me? I'm going to watch. I'm going to watch one of the epic events of our time." For a moment, Beardsley was solemn, almost shocked as a thought struck him. "In a way, it will be sad. Yes, It will. ECA-IAC is about to lose her first case. Now, that was strange. Why should he have said such a thing? Why, now that the game was over, which had to be played, and he felt the bitter, sweet surge of victory that lay throbbing at his grasp. About to lose her first case. He shrugged in remote annoyance and strode away from Pedersen. It would be fast now. Already the rejects were falling, the irrelevance, as ECA-IAC with blithe unconcern brought the final equate toward conclusion. He observed Jeff Arnold, standing silent and alert, but so devoid of all emotion that somehow it wasn't real. And Mendelko, half crouched, teeth gnawing away at the cigar, his heavy face rapacious and eager as he awaited the final tape. That was all that mattered now. The mathematics would register, code would add synaptic approval, and proof indisputable would be on that tape in clear, translated print, the name of Carmack's killer. Indisputable? Bowing his head, Beardsley smiled and listened to the smooth, rhythmic control. Nothing sinister now. No snapping malevolence. All those other times. His unreasoning panic. The askance remarks from Arnold. The humiliation. The very thought of it now was gibing and obscene. How could he have ever been caught up in such a thrall of terror? It wasn't terror he felt now. Something... His smile turned to a giggle as he felt a sudden compelling impulse to pat ECA-IAC on the head. Now, how would one do that? Never mind. Never mind. Never mind. Never again are you going to snap at me, Eckie. We were introduced, remember? We're really great friends now. For a moment, Beardsley was suspended in astonishment, aware that he had almost crooned the thought. He glanced around in embarrassment. Pedersen was watching him. Pedersen was at his side again, perplexed and frowning. Beardsley, this business of Sheila and Arnold, it wouldn't happen that way. It couldn't. There's another answer. There's got to be. Beardsley stood unmoving, oblivious. Almost he seemed suspended in another dimension. Almost he caught the quivering of a mind, but could not separate it from the sudden tremor that rose in his own. He couldn't avoid it. It came unbidden. It battered through his reason. It towered there and blotted out his thoughts until all that was left was a tremulous regret and a trite compassion. About to lose her first case. But one loses, and one survives it, you know. One survives it. For 12 years now. More than a tremor now. More than compassion now. A sense of betrayal almost. Illogical and nameless, and yet palpable as the scent of fear. There was a pulse of red darkness in Beardsley's brain as all the mental and emotional equations of his being sang a sharp alarm. For subtly, ever so subtly, ECA-IAC's deep-throated tone had changed. Nothing like those other times. Rather, it was a halting stutter of puzzlement, erratic and querulous, with overtones of immediacy, as if some formless presence were on the verge of unleashing. Beardsley looked down at his hands, and they were trembling. He could not stop the trembling. A tightness took him about the heart, and behind his eyes that pulse of red darkness presaged the beginnings of a violent headache. Even the others noticed it now, something amiss. Jeff Arnold especially. He looked up in quick alarm at the equate panel where the mathematics seemed to have gone a little fitful, a little frantic, with stuttery lapses in progression, as if ECA-IAC were unable or unwilling to confront. The flux of pattern dimmed, then hesitated, blanked out, and heroically began anew. It happened suddenly then. It happened as the text came crowding around. There came a quivering, a sort of shudder, and ECA-IAC subsided with a final weary gasp. It was for all the world as if she were saying, "This is it, boys. I've had it." But it was there. It was there. All at once, every symbol was constant, static, and livid upon the screen, enhanced by the words equate, complete, equate, complete. In that moment, every tech in the room must have felt a touch of pride. A click, a whir, and it was done. The fateful tape ejected. Both Mandelko and Arnold leapt for it, but Arnold was there first. He ripped the tape clear and then paused, hand outflung as if he could not resist this final bit of drama. Well? Well, Arnold? Mandelko was hopping ludicrously about in an agony of impatience. Arnold nodded. He brought the tape to his scrutiny. His mouth opened, then shut again as a shudder seized him. Once more he read it, a look of wild disbelief on his face. He staggered and seemed about to cry or go hysterical, or both. Mandelko gave a snort as he pounced, recovered the tape, and with blunt assurance read the words aloud. Solution, untenable. Solution, untenable. Sub-circuit referral. Ellery Sherlock. Sub-circuit referral. Ellery Sherlock. He sounded like a well-grooved parrot. Mandelko turned east, then south, and south by east, like a compass on a binge. He looked as if he wanted to roar, but his voice came out as a frantic bleat. "Why, this is crazy! God damn it, it's crazy! Do you realize what this will—" He confronted Arnold wildly. "What the hell does this mean? I say, untenable? And who the hell is Ellery Sherlock?" He got no response. Jeff Arnold was oblivious to the moment, a man utterly defeated, beyond solace or action or answer, but already a few of his techs were huddled about the panel, consulting, viewing the equate constant and frantically taking notes. Mandelko shoved his way through them. "I demand to know the meaning of this," he yelped. It was Sheila Carmack who answered, her voice on the high edge of hysteria. "Meaning? I think it might mean," she said, "that ECA-IAC has also had a recent indulgence for the whodunits, but with a smattering of confusion, wouldn't you say? Or would you say a distortion of the detectival? Perhaps disenchantment?" She murmured. This was too absurd, too delicious. "Ellery Sherlock," she choked, and the thought of it seemed to break her up. In the general hysteria, they paid no heed to Raoul Beardsley. He had regained his composure, and far down in his eyes something leapt into rapt expression. He adjusted his glasses and peered around cautiously, beaming. He beamed at them all, and had to suppress an inane glee. Not glee as he observed Pedersen, who stood there scowling into space as though at some incredible absurdity. Suddenly Pedersen straightened, and there was something strangely different. His gaze as it met Beardsley's was neither shocked nor accusing, but held an expression of boundless sadness. So Pedersen knew. At last the poor fellow had found that other answer. Beardsley had been expecting it. He could almost sense the man's thoughts going to and fro, like a shuttle, weaving all the facts into fabric. And Pedersen's voice, ineffably sad now, regretful now. "So I was right the first time. The tapes. It was the tapes. But even without that, I ought to have known. The answer was there. You handed it to us, but it was like looking straight into the sun." He paused. Did he expect Beardsley to say something? Beardsley looked up at him and blinked. "Motives," Pedersen said accusingly. "There was your theme from the first. You were relentless. You pursued it to perfection. You laid our motives bare, and you beat them raw, each and every one. Oh, I grant you, it was masterful. It was the Beardsley of old. You managed to keep us off balance every moment. He wet his lips. What was it, Beardsley? A compulsion? Some grotesque need to squeeze us all down to microscopic size first? Oh, you enjoyed doing that. I watched you. You enjoyed it in a way that... He shook his head, glanced sorrowfully at the equate panel. And this? Was it all for this? An achievement, an absurdity? Ellery Sherlock? He said with a shudder. In heaven's name, why? You didn't really expect to carry it off. No, don't answer. It's not important now. Beardsley shrugged in remote annoyance. Must the man use such puerile methods? Not important, Pedersen repeated and stood caught in his startled wonderment. Because you see, Beardsley, I just happen to remember something from the whodunits. That surprises you? So long ago I can't quite recall who said it, but it was a rather good exposition of logic. Something to the effect that when you've exhausted the possible, all the possible, that which remains, no matter how impossible it may seem, must be the truth. His head lifted, his gaze bored into Beardsley's, and his voice was tight with meaning. And I'd say we've come full circle, wouldn't you? You will have to admit you did a real good job of eliminating. Beardsley managed to smile, even as his mind jarred a little, even as he met Pedersen's gaze and saw the compassion there, the acceptance there, the understanding and boundless regret. For a split second, something leapt unspoken between them, as if doors in both their minds had opened and closed again. He turned away wordlessly. Close as Pedersen had come, even he was an irrelevance now. But ECAIAC didn't know. Poor Eckie. Her first real failure, a fiasco. She really deserved a better fate. Beardsley's heart went out to her. As he observed Arnold in his defeat and Mandelko in his frustration and the huddle of techs in their futile efforts. Suddenly then, code, he heard one of them say, gesturing excitedly. Post-subjective synapse, another tech yelled, and there was sudden scurry of activity about the screen. Without warning or appreciable reason, those symbols had begun to shift, wild and elusive, ghost patterns without semblance or sense, but so unmistakable that even Jeff Arnold was jarred alert. Arnold stared, then suddenly was white as chalk as he plowed into the midst of his techs. Beardsley stood frozen, a fatuous smile about his lips. There was only a silence now, a silence that had a pulse in it, the beating of his heart. Seconds only. Suddenly there was another pulse from another heart. ECAIAC wasn't quite finished. Unerring and resolute, the sound came up, slowly at first, and then faster, gathering strength into a steady drone as if every synapse were dredging deep into the sensitized structure. And even before the panel attained flux again, a tech was waving his notes and yelling, "It's true! Post-subjective synapses! Unbelievable! Jeff, we now have a constant." But ECAIAC was telling them that. The sound went on, wild and lone and constant, ascending to the confines of the room, transcending the confines of reason. It was crescendo incarnate. It was purpose gone rife. It was human and more than human, with all the fears and hopes and hates, as it attained a high-pitched scream with wailing overtones such as even Arnold had never heard. There was sentience in it. There was awareness in it. There was fury in it. And who could say if there was grief? There might have been. Only Beardsley knew. He felt suddenly packed in ice. From his lips to the pit of his belly, he revolved slowly away, took a few steps, and caught the edge of the panel. His whole body began to shake uncontrollably, and his lips moved in a soundless whisper that seemed to say, "No, no, Don't you understand? We're friends now. But no one heard. No one would have understood. Arnold handled the tape as it came looping out. The words fell slowly at first, then faster and faster in constant repeat. Cancel, last equate, solution tenable. Cancel, last equate, solution tenable. Another word came, a single word. Arnold stiffened. One of the texts was so indiscreet as to exclaim, "Murderer? Where did he pick up that word? Final equate is proper." A space, a whir, and the rest of it came in a clicking rush against the high-pitched scream. "Murderer! Raoul Beardsley! Murderer! Raoul Beardsley! Murderer! Raoul! Murderer! Murderer!" Incessant, untiring. There was no trial. Trial presupposes a modicum of doubt, and Beardsley dispelled that readily enough. Once more the pathetic figure, it was as if he were impelled by a dull and pitiless logic. He waived all defense. His confession to the murder of Amos Carmack was straightforward and factual, unvarying to the point of boredom, insistent with repetition, and the socio-legal aspect was there in the rub. Whether it was true psychic shock or mere cunning, there seemed to be a blind spot in Beardsley's responses, a stumbling reticence to elaborate detail that left the Citizens Disposition Council with a problem on its hands, baffling as it was unprecedented. Judicially, they were safe. There would not even be need of null censor. But actually, the problem here was of far more vital consequence than murder, and indeed more frightening. It had to do with Beardsley versus ECAIAC, the encompassing modus operandi, and all the implications of that grotesque denouement. At whatever cost, these things had to be answered. Oh, there was amusement, too. The fact that Minister of Justice Mandelko had begged off, far from gracefully, and retired to the isolation of his 10,000-acre Alaskan ranch for an unspecified time, had brought snickers from those in the know. The chief counselor of disposition looked like he'd like to retire too. For the third time in as many days, he took his place in the private sessions chamber, glanced at Beardsley with shuddering disbelief, and then bent his head in pontifical guise as he leafed through his notes. It wasn't as if he weren't unversed in the matter by now, but who was there to question if his lips moved fretfully across the words, "Ellery Sherlock"? He was thinking, yesterday, wasted. Covert regression, myself included. No more of that. And with that bolstering thought, he brought his head up sharply. "Counselor, our task for today," voice quavering, he saved it from the upper registers, "our task for today is to get at the aggregate pattern, and I assure you, gentlemen, we are going to do that. Now, Mr. Pedersen, if you please." Pedersen, "Yes, sir?" Counselor, "I see that Mr. Beardsley made certain statements to you, and to you alone, immediately after the ECAIAC incident." Pedersen, "You saw that 3 days ago. Must we go through it again?" Counselor, "We must and we shall. Due to the unnatural tenor of the case, it is the opinion of the council that these things must be fixed and adjudged if we are to make a correct disposition." Pedersen, wearily, "Yes, sir. Well, the fact is he seemed to want to confide in me. Nothing strange in that. He realized he had lost. Poor guy, and he..." Counselor, "Mr. Pedersen, no diversions, please. We'd simply like to hear from your own lips what Beardsley told you." Glances at his notes. "Is it true that he said his sole motive in this affair was to prove he could conduct an investigation as efficiently as ECAIAC or any damn machine?" Pedersen, hesitant, with a glance at Beardsley, who sat remote and vacuous. "Yes, he told me that." Counselor, even to the point of committing a murder to prove it? And his entire subsequent action was predicated upon that? We have extensive reports here from Mrs. Carmack, from Mandelko, from Jeff Arnold, and yourself. It is difficult to see how such a basically integrated and well-functioning personality as Raoul Beardsley... Pedersen, angrily, no, what you fail to see is the facade. What man has stronger reason than the man who has lost his reason? It is the only outlet for aggression, a devious fulfillment. It brings psychological satisfactions which cannot be obtained in any other way. Call it the self-destruction impulse, if you will. I doubt if Beardsley rationalized this, but he had come to his moment, his time of assertion, his way of making fools of us all. And my complete opinion, sir, is that his actions from beginning to end were both a triumph and an inspiration. Counselor, smugly, thank you, Mr. Pedersen. These are the insights you had not revealed before. Turns to the member at the far end of the table. Dr. Diabler, as psychologist assigned to disposition counsel, may I ask if there's an area of concurrence? Diabler, bored, but deigns to lift a hand. Save for the rhetorics at the very end. You have my official concurrence. It's obvious in every aspect. This was a devious fulfillment of the self-destructive impulse. Counselor, thank you, sir. It will be so noted. And now, makes a pretense of scanning his brief. Now we come to an area of vital interest, an area demanding our most urgent attention, inasmuch as it gives indication of threatening our basic fundamental of cybernetic detection. Believe me, I cannot place enough emphasis here. I refer, of course, to Mr. Beardsley's process of manipulation of ECA-IAC and this strange business of Ellery Sherlock. Pause. Mr. Jeff Arnold, if you please. I believe you were to be ready with some observations today. Arnold. Yes, sir, but more than observation, I'm glad to report we have solved the Ellery Sherlock equate. Counselor. This is wonderful. Will you proceed, sir? Arnold. A strange thing, and yet so simple. We began by resurrecting a huge number of summaries. We dredged into dead file for at least 3 years back, reran them under a synapse intensifier. It's all there, you know. Every minute particle of every case that has gone through ECA-IAC. Almost subliminal, some of it, but... Counselor, one moment, sir. This reference to synapse, could you, clarify? Arnold, why, a synapse is a primary adjunct to memory. The human brain has billions of them, neuronically linked, sort of pathways that get grooved deeper and deeper with constant repetition of thought, until after a while they become completely permanent, retentive, and self-functioning. ECA-IAC is similarly equipped, not to the degree of the human brain as yet, but amazingly. Counselor, dazed. Ah, yes. Please continue, sir. Arnold, as I said, we revived a number of the old cases, and what we discovered was that Beardsley, for years past, mind you, has been utilizing his capacity as chief of coordinates to introduce extraneous material to ECA-IAC via the tapes in each and every case that came before him. Oh, you can believe me, he was clever. He went about it by slow and subtle degrees. And the substance of this material, sir? Pauses, gulps, and shakes his head, unable to go on. Counselor, please control yourself, sir. The substance of this extraneous material? Arnold again gulps. Detective fiction. Counselor leans forward sharply. Do I understand you correctly, Mr. Arnold? You did say detective fiction? Arnold, of two types, Ellery Queen and Sherlock Holmes. I presume it was Beardsley's random choice, but there was nothing random about his purpose. Don't you see? Don't you see? It all fits. It explains the trouble we were having in recent months in getting total synaptic clearance. His voice borders on the frantic. I remember now. I even mentioned this to Beardsley. And oh, the smug way he took it. He knew, damn him. He knew. He was getting there. He was reaching the synaptic. A bit of fiction here and a bit there. ECAIAC was being conditioned, unable to distinguish the real from the unreal. Counselor. Mr. Arnold, if you please, sir. Waits for Arnold to subside. I can appreciate how this discovery distresses you, both personally and in your official capacity. But be assured that your findings will be of inestimable value to future security. In fact, smiles slightly, Counsel has not been idle in its own pursuit of Mr. Beardsley's vagaries. Rises, removes a small screen to reveal a towering pile of tomes. And now, Mr. Beardsley, I must really ask you to cooperate. I believe you fully capable. Are these your books? Beardsley adjusts his glasses, smiles at his books. Yes. Counselor. And these charts, these graphs that we found plastered to every wall of your home, obviously they're also yours? Beardsley adjusts his glasses, smiles at his graphs. Yes. Counselor. Thank you, Mr. Beardsley. That's fine. And Mr. Beardsley, what did you use them for? These books, these graphs? Beardsley, groping, bewildered. I. Counselor sees the futility of it. Gentlemen, I believe we can proceed on the grounds of self-evidence. Let me read you a few of the titles from these books. The Cybernetic Principle Advanced Theory. The Synapse in Function. And here we have Synaptics, Pattern and Flux. There are more, many more in similar vein. Turns abruptly. Mr. Arnold, I'm sure you're familiar with most of these volumes. On the basis of the content, would you say that you could duplicate Beardsley's feat? Arnold, aghast. No! I would not presume to say that, sir. Counselor frowns. It was not the answer he wanted. Very well, then. Dr. Tretensky, would you come forward, please? Dr. Tretensky, you were head of the Department of Advanced Cybernetics at Caltech. You have had opportunity to study these graphs and charts in the minutest detail. Tretensky, oh yes, fascinating. Counselor, I put the question, would it be possible for you to duplicate the grotesque feat that Beardsley performed on ECAIAC? Tretensky, yes, possibly. No, I will say definitely. You mean, of course, cold from the beginning? Yes. But it would take me approximately 3 to 4 years. Counselor, yes, Mr. Beardsley, what is it? You would like to make a pertinent statement? Beardsley, abashed. Oh, I only wanted to say it took me longer, 4 to 5 years. Counselor, wearily, just waits for laughter to subside. Gentlemen, I think we may safely wrap it up now. Our function here is disposition. Our choice is twofold. 1, the subject is sane, in which case he will pay the supreme penalty for murder which he has freely admitted. Or 2, he is obviously insane, in which case he will be subjected to psychic probe as provided by laws, thus restoring a measure of normalcy sufficient to place him again in society. Restricted, of course. Dr. Dobler, sir, one moment, if you please. I simply do not understand your language, and even less can I condone your haste. Safely? Wrap it up, you say? What do you mean by that? Safe for whom? And obviously insane? Was that a slip of the tongue, sir, or are you trying to force an issue here? Counselor, coldly. I must remind you that we already have competent reports on subject status Add to that the facts presented here, they are overwhelming. The man's own admission and attitude are substantiation. It is my considered opinion, and I'm sure the opinion of the council, that the man is insane. Subjection to psychic probe will restore him to... Dobler. Oh, yes, the psychic probe. I have no quarrel there. But suppose you were wrong. Have you ever considered the effects of probe on a sane mind? Have you ever seen it? Once I saw it, only once. It is worse than disaster. It is horrible. It results in a sort of psychic tearing that heals and then tears and then heals in continuous perpetuation. It is indescribable. It is subhuman. Compared to that, death or even insanity is a blessed relief. Now, gentlemen, listen. I implore you not to be in error. True, it was my opinion that Beardsley acted in fulfillment of the self-destruct impulse, but the man is sane. Sane, I tell you, and entitled to a humanitarian death. My professional judgment, Counselor, again coldly glancing around, is welcome, but does not bear final weight, sir. Silence closed down like a pall. Dobler's plea, by its very impassioned nature, had gotten through. It was a moment of embarrassment and indecision in which each man weighed his conscience and found it wanting, in which every member of council looked to his neighbor for solution or solace, and finding neither, turned back to himself aghast. Only one person looked to the true source and saw the solution as it would be, as it had to be. Pedersen. Heartsick with the knowing, he observed Raoul Beardsley and remembered this funny little man, this ridiculous man, this proud man who had seized his fate and shoved it through because it had to be done, because he obeyed the dictates, because he had reached his time of assertion. Oh, Pedersen remembered. And most of all, he remembered Beardsley there at the last, in that final moment when ECA-IAC had reached the wailing heights of sentience and grief. And how could he ever forget Beardsley's soundless whisper that seemed to say, "No, no, don't you understand? We're friends now." Pedersen remembered. He remembered, and looking up, saw the council had reached equitable agreement, and his heart was sick, and his soul was sick as he realized this was final. There could be no appeal. For the last time he looked upon Beardsley's face and saw that the man was fully cognizant. Beardsley also knew. Dobler had been right. Pedersen turned his face away. Counselor. Now we are agreed, gentlemen. Waits for general approval. Be it pronounced then, inasmuch as there exists a general area of doubt as to disposition, and inasmuch as it is agreed that further deliberation would be prolonged and pointless, and inasmuch as our faith in the ultimate function of ECA-IAC remains inestimable, despite recent vagaries, which shall never occur again, be it therefore resolved that the problem pending shall be taped in all its detail and submitted to ECA-IAC for final disposition. The end. End of section 25. End of 11 stories by Louis Hasse.